Hi everyone, it's Agnes here, and I'm reading again from Neville's wonderful book, The Power of Awareness. Okay, so this is from chapter 9, Preparing Your Place. Now, that which you do not claim as your true of self cannot be realized by you. The promise is, whatsoever hath, to him shall be given, and he shall have more abundance. But whosoever hath not, from him shall be taken away even that which he seems to have. So, in a nutshell, the promise is, as Neville talks about the law and the promise, the law being imagination creates reality, and the promise being, and I'll try and make it as simple as possible here, those that feel and live from a state of being, be it wealth, love, health, as examples, that will be given to you, okay? But those who hath not, those that don't hold that state that they desire and stay in poverty, disease, unlovedness, then for him it shall be taken away. So money leaves you, relationships go away from you, health turns into sickness, okay? So you must hold the state for the state's evidence, as in the manifestation, the materialization of what you want, to come to you, okay? So that's what Neville says the promise is. And I know some of you have asked about what is the law and the promise. So it didn't come from the law and the promise, it came from the power of awareness. That's the simplest explanation I've heard of that. So I thought I'd read that to you. So, assume it. You do this by imagining that you already are what you want to be and already have what you want to have. Okay? Be still and know that you are that which you desire to be, and you will never have to search for it. In spite of your appearance of freedom of action, you obey, as everything else does, the law of assumption. Whatever you may think of the question of free will, the truth is, your experiences throughout your life are determined by your assumptions, whether conscious or unconscious. And for many of us, there's been a lot of miscreations, things that you don't want because you didn't do it consciously. The focus, the law of assumption, living in the wish fulfilled, knowing about imagination creates reality. You've just been hooning around, reacting to everything. But the thing is, the things you're reacting to have been pre-created by your energy and your assumptions. I want to explain something else too. You know, in this day and age, we talk about the umbrella of the law. The biggest one that seems to show up again and again and again is the law of attraction. Now, the law of attraction cannot occur until you have launched the law of assumption and the law of projection, you see. What you send out, what you project out through your energy, through your feeling, through your focus, what your thought is on, okay? Then your assumption is the part before it. So you assume something, you project it out, and the law of attraction photocopies and brings it back, okay? So there's so many different laws, but those laws are the ones that we talk about and experience again and again and again a lot, okay? So I'm going to talk a little bit more here from Neville's book, or in his words. An assumption builds a bridge of incidents that leads inevitably to the fulfillment of itself. So, let's do an example. While I was assuming unconsciously that I was second best and not good enough, I would attract people that would put someone else first. That could have been in relationship. It was also in friendships. It was also at work. Okay, so it doesn't matter which situation you're facing. In this case, in my past experiences, that really strong belief of I'm not good enough and I'm second best created second best situations across the board until I learned about this, about being first best, loved, wanted, and all those things we talk about again and again on the channel. It was only then that I saw a shift in results. Okay? How do you know you've shifted from an old state into a new state? The results will tell you if you really did it. Okay, people often say they have. I've done this. I know I feel first best, but the evidence is still telling you that you're second best. Well, then you haven't done it enough. You haven't assumed it enough. You haven't believed it enough. Okay, but that's okay. You could be in transit and the tide is starting to turn, so you keep going, and you eventually the energy breaks and whoosh, you start to see the evidence. Okay, so back to Neville. Man believes the future to be the natural development of the past. But the law of assumption clearly shows that this is not the case. Your assumption places you psychologically where you are not physically. Then your scenes, no, it's not scenes. I've got highlighter over it and it looks like scenes, but it's actually the senses. Then your senses pull you back from where you are and where you were psychologically to where you are physically. It is these psychological forward motions that produce your physical forward motions in time. So, precognition permeates all the scriptures of the world. So, let me just explain that a little bit because I know it's a little bit Neville-y worded. So, what you do is with the law of assumption, I'm going to break this down step by step. The law of assumption clearly shows that this is not the case. That what man believes that the future to be natural development of the past. Okay, so the law of assumption clearly shows that this is not the case. Your assumption places you psychologically where you are not physically. So let's do this step by step. You assume that you are feeling very loved. Okay, you feel really wanted. You feel trust. You feel at peace. You feel that you are good enough, okay? And you feel secure. So that's your assumption, irregardless that someone's left you not long ago, okay? So you assume that I'm wanted, I'm loved, and you get that feeling in your heart, in your body, and you let go of the old state of I'm not loved, I'm not wanted. So you're shifting states through assuming the new state, which is that you are loved and wanted. Now, it doesn't matter about the evidence outside. You're changing the inside, and therefore the outside has to rearrange itself. Okay? So, your assumption places you psychologically where you're not physically. So your assumption places you in the feeling place of I am loved and wanted. And it says where you're not physically, because where you are physically is here, feeling unloved and unwanted. So you're using the law of assumption to believe you're loved and wanted. So you're placing yourself somewhere else, okay? It is these psychological forward motions that produce your physical forward motions in time. So I'm going to just describe this. It's a bit like a slingshot. You go forward psychologically through assuming the law of assumption, okay? Then what happens is, in a period of time, your body goes and catches up, okay? So you've got to launch your awareness, launch yourself mentally, launch yourself emotionally, because that's what you're doing. You're changing that emotional state of into, okay? So the first one was unloved and the second one was loved, in case you didn't know. So that is what you're doing, okay? But it is like your spirit goes forward and then your body catches up. Okay, that's how it works. And I love the way he says this, that it's these psychological forward motions. So what you're doing in your mind, using the law of assumption, saying I'm loved and I'm wanted and I'm secure. And what happens is that's a motion of energy, of thought, of feeling, of belief, changing from one side of the coin to the other. And then what happens is it produces your physical forward motion in time. So your body slingshots and catches up, okay? I really loved that. I thought that was just so visually interesting. So, this is all out of the book, around chapter 9, page 38, if you've got this copy of the book. Okay, so you go and prepare a place for yourself by imagining yourself into the feeling of your wish fulfilled. Then you speed from this state of the wish fulfilled, where you have not been physically, back to where you were physically a moment ago. Then with an irresistible forward movement, you move forward across a series of events to the physical realization of your wish, that where you have been in imagination, there you will be in the flesh also. So, I love that too. An irresistible forward movement. You move forward across a series of events. So we've called that the bridge of events. We've called that a series of events. There are different ways of saying it. So you're actually moving into the 3D, and it becomes the actual manifestation of what you want. So there you go. So I'm going to read a little bit more because this book is so good. I'd forgotten, and it was a conversation with Maria. Maria, you know who you are, that we've been talking about this book, and I've really been enjoying revisiting it. And, you know, I mean, it ends up all looking like this as you go through. So now, if creation is finished, because we talk about conscious creation, but it isn't actually conscious creation, really. It's conscious selection. Everything's already created and you select something off the shelf. I will put the conscious selection YouTube, where I talked about that whole thing a bit more visually for those of you that want an explanation. I will put that YouTube down below for you to explore. So, if creation is finished and all events are taking place now, the question that springs naturally to the mind is, what determines your time track? Okay, that is, what determines the events which you encounter? And the answer is your concept of yourself. Concepts determine the route that attention follows. Okay, so whatever you put your focus on, that's what you become. Okay, that's basically the simple English version of that. And here is a good test to prove this fact. Assume the feeling of your wish fulfilled and observe the route that your attention follows. I'm going to read that again. Assume the feeling of your wish fulfilled and observe the route that your attention follows. So if you're assuming the feeling of feeling loved, which is your wish fulfilled, then observe the route that your attention goes to. Okay, you will observe that as long as you remain faithful to your assumption, so long will your attention be confronted with images clearly related to that assumption. So I'm going to read that bit one more time. You will observe that as long as you remain faithful to your assumption of feeling loved, for example, so long will your attention be confronted with images clearly related to that assumption. So in other words, if you have committed and are faithful to the assumption of being loved, you will have external evidence of that being true. And if you're feeling the opposite, feeling unloved and unwanted and insecure and full of anxiety, you will get the evidence of that on the outside, that you are unloved and you are unwanted, which is why people end up in situations where people leave them, because that feeling's been there and that has been echoed on the outside. Okay? So, thus it is clearly seen how you, by your concept of yourself, determine your present, that is, the particular portion of creation which you now experience, and your future, that is, the particular portion of creation which you will experience. Okay, so that is a little bit more about the power of awareness, and I hope you're enjoying this as much as I am, because it is such a great book. I mean, all the Neville books have got so many great little nuggets in them, but yeah, I've been reading this and it's really kind of igniting my mind again. So that is part one. Well, not part one, because I think I did a few parts. It is another part for you to chew on and see what you think.